If your content is getting views, but not turning into clients, it's not a traffic problem. It's a conversion problem. It's not your editing. It's not your consistency. It's how your content is shaping what your viewer does next. Because right now, people can watch everything that you post, agree with all of it, and still do nothing afterwards. And if that is happening, your content isn't converting. It's keeping people exactly where they are. You've experienced this before. You've watched someone's content, everything they said made sense, and then you kept doing exactly what you were already doing. Nothing changed. But when something actually hits, you don't just sit there. You pause it. You take notes. Maybe you try to implement their solution immediately because something about it forced you to see things differently. And that difference is why most content get attention, but it never turns into conversations. You see, because agreement is easy, and that's the problem. Someone can agree with everything you say and still believe their situation isn't that serious. Still believe their current approach might just work. Still believe they don't need to change anything yet. And as long as that doesn't change, their behavior stays the same. Ask yourself if this is true of your content. Does it get your audience to nod? Does it get them to say, that makes sense? But it leaves their thinking exactly where it was before they hit play. Simply put, if your video isn't shifting how someone sees their situation, it's not going to influence what they do next, because someone doesn't go from watching your video to deciding to work with you. There's a sequence your viewer has to move through first that takes them from agreeing to actually doing something about it. That's the structure I call the authority to revenue sequence. It's not just what you say, it's how your content shapes what someone believes before they make a decision. Now, here's a quick refresher, especially if you're new here. The authority to revenue sequence has 4 stages. First, the problem has to feel real. Next, the problem has to feel costly. Third, they must understand that their current approach won't fix it. And fourth, you are to position yourself as the inevitable solution. Now, we've all gotten stuck in this give a value loop, and that can mean almost anything. But it usually ends up looking a little something like this. You're teaching, you're sharing ideas, you're giving advice. And that works if all you're trying to do is prove that you know what you're talking about. But for the person that's watching, if it doesn't hit something real for them, they may have a bit of an aha moment. And then, well, they keep scrolling. The problem is your content isn't built to challenge what your viewer already believes. So let's say, for instance, you're a health coach that works with parents who feels responsible for breaking the cycle of poor health in their family. They may think they need meal plans, workout routines, and organic grocery lists, but you know they don't need another meal plan. They need a different definition of what health actually is. Something that holds up when life gets hectic, not just when everything is calm. If your content stays focused on what they already think is true, you end up explaining things they already agree with. So the deeper problem your offer is built to solve never really get exposed. Your viewer doesn't question their current approach. They don't feel any urgency to change it. And as a result, even if they agree with you, they fall right back into the same patterns and routines, all while hoping that it works. If you're now noticing that nothing in your content is actually changing how your viewer approach their situation, don't default to just saying more. Instead, Your content should start exposing the deeper problem your viewer is dealing with. And it needs to happen across a series of videos. In other words, your content needs to start working together. Each piece should have a specific job. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same idea in different ways. One video might make the problem harder to ignore. Another might show them why their current approach isn't working. Another builds trust in your solution. This doesn't happen all at once, but over time, because that's how someone actually moves. They don't go from unaware to ready to act in a single video. It happens step by step as each piece of content adds pressure to what they're currently doing. It makes staying where they are harder for them to justify. So if your content is getting people to agree, but nothing is actually changing in your business, you're going to keep putting content out and wondering why it's not turning into clients. If you want to see how this actually works, watch this video next and start with a deep dive into the authority to revenue sequence. I'll see you there. Love.